This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Hi, my name is Igor Kheifets, and this is the List Building Lifestyle, the only podcast which delivers cutting-edge conversion strategies from the online trenches straight to your earbuds. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. I also invite you to grab a free copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. And now, once again, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle.
You are listening to List Building Lifestyle. Here is the king of list building himself, Mr. Igor Kheifets. What is up, my man?
All good, Jonathan, all good. Getting ready for my trip. And there is no better day to do a podcast episode than just before you get on a plane.
Why is that?
Well, it gets you pumped up, man. It reminds you that you're somebody, that you matter, that you touch lives. And to me, that's really important. You know, someone told my wife once that she should always praise me because, as a wife, that's one of the primary things a wife should do. Because everything else, like food and sex, you can buy that pretty much. But getting genuine praise, you can't. And so whenever we do a podcast episode and you kind of intro me and you're like, he's the prince of list building, he's the king of list building, he's the dad of list building, that's good for me. That's just, it's like therapy.
I need to start my own show. That's what you're telling me. So what do you have in store for us today?
Well, I wanted to discuss a topic which is long overdue, and it's a question I get a lot, and that is how to bring back a dead list. Basically, the question I get from customers and listeners is, Igor, I've built this list with different traffic source, or I built it with free traffic, so whatever. This list ain't producing. 2,700 people not opening an email, or 1,000 people opening emails but not clicking, or 10,000 people that I purchased off of a lead broker that I never mailed in my life, and I purchased them last year. Can I do something with that list? So essentially, all questions, no matter how they're positioned, all come down to this one truth, and that is, I got a list of prospects which I haven't contacted recently, and I am not sure what to email them with. And, my question is, can I email them in the first place? And if so, what do I send? And so my answer is twofold. The first part of my answer is quite simply drop that list and move on. That would probably be the most productive advice I can give you, okay?
Ouch.
Yeah, it hurts. And it's something I learned after I started learning copywriting. And, I submitted a bunch of work to my mentor, Ross Bowring. And when I submitted my work, he'd always tell me to go fix it, but not fix it in the form of rewriting it, but fix it in the form of writing it from scratch. So he would completely trash my work and say, write from scratch. And at some point, I got so upset with him and for doing that all the time. I said, Ross, why? Why can't I just rewrite this? And he says, it's easier to write from scratch than it is to fix a bad piece of copy. So my advice to list builders is exactly the same. It is easier to build a brand new quality list that's responsive than it ever will be to bring back a dead list and make it respond again. Now, so that's the first part of my answer, which I realize is not the most optimistic one. However, there is, in case you're stubborn, let's just say, you're stubborn and you really want to use that dead list for something. Maybe it's the greedy bastard in you that says, but I spent all this time and I spent all this money. I want this list to work. I can't just let it go. It's kind of like, what this reminds me is people who hold on to a bad marriage. They keep on suffering together because they invested lots and lots of time and effort into their marriage, and they won't let go, even if it sucks. And even if they try to fix it and it doesn't work, simply because, they put in a lot of effort into it. So if you insist on acting that way, which I don't recommend, the best thing you could do is to try what's called the resurrection sequence. Now, the resurrection sequence means you have to email your list for about 10 days with infotainment, but without a pitch. And in each and every single email, you have to build up that in some time from now, hopefully again in 10 days, so every email will be like a countdown email, you will send them something awesome, whether a link to a brand new product that you're producing that's not available in the market right now that fixes their biggest problem, or maybe some sort of a webinar that you want to do for them, whatever that may be, that has to be exciting for them. And so you have to send them 10 emails with infotaining content, which hits their insecurities, which hits their deepest desires, which tells them entertaining stories, but you are not allowed to pitch anything. All you're doing now is teasing. So you're sort of walking your prospects into 10-day sequence that's kind of like a strip club, where your job is to be the pole dancer that teases and teases and teases to a point where they really want to find out what the hell are you saying to them at the end of that 10-day sequence. That's the best you can do. And if they respond to that, and I assure you most won't, but some of them will, these will be your active subscribers that you re-engaged successfully. And again, if you're selling something at the end of those 10 days, you will be surprised how many people can actually buy. But I have to tell you that the chances of that happening, okay, are very, very slim. And the reason is, first off, you have to be a highly skilled email marketer. Like I'm talking, Ben Settle level or Jonathan's level or my level or Doberman Dan level, that kind of skill set. You can't do it if you're just getting into email marketing. It simply won't work. Second, you have to know your market inside and out. One of the best things you can do in general, of course, is to know your market, know thy audience, right? You have to know them better than they know themselves. You have to know their deepest secrets, their deepest desires, their deepest needs, their deepest insecurities. So you have to go way below the surface, way behind the curtain, if you will, in order to engage them, because the things that get attention are those deep things. Jonathan, you sent out an email a couple of days ago that said what to talk about on your podcast or something like that, where you spoke about someone emailing you and asking, like, they want to do a podcast, but they have no clue what to talk about. And, for me, that was a big email because every single time we sit down to record, I get on my Evernote and I start, trying to brainstorm ideas. What the hell do I talk about today? What the hell do I talk about today? At this point, we've done a ton of episodes. I think we're way over 80. And, you can only imagine how difficult it might be for someone like me to now come, sit down and say, okay, I have to talk about something and it can't be what I spoke about in the previous episodes, right? Imagine how difficult it is. So it's an insecurity of mine, right? I do wake up in the morning on the podcast day, if you will, and I'm wondering, what the hell am I going to talk about today? So that insecurity gets my attention. I read the email, I click the link, I watch the video, period. It's psychologically impossible for me to ignore that statement. That subject line simply grabs a hold of me and it pulls me in no matter what I do, no matter what, what I'm busy with, no matter what's going on in my schedule that day. It really doesn't matter. The psychological need to fulfill this desire to forever solve the mystery of what the hell do I talk about will drive me to checking out that email and clicking on that link. So your job in that resurrection sequence is to go ahead and know thy market so well that you can write an infotaining email hitting those frustrations, hitting those insecurities, delivering those most desired benefits. And that's the only chance you really got to re-engage the list. Again, only a portion of that dead list, because I assure you, if you haven't mailed them for a while, a lot of them won't know who you are. And that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, the people that I don't know who hit my inbox, I don't even read their emails. I just check the little box next to their name and I hit delete or mark as spam because I don't know who they are. Unless the subject line, of course, is so enticing, right? That hits my nerve. So they don't know who you are. You're probably not going to inbox because you haven't mailed them ever, because, it's just going to be out of the blue like that. And you have to stay relevant. So if they've been on your list for a year, they might not be interested in whatever it is that you're selling at the time. So if they had a hemorrhoids issue a year ago, they might have fixed that. Or they might have said, okay, well, I'm going to live with my hemorrhoids for the rest of my life. And they're not interested in fixing that anymore. Whatever the case may be, it might not be relevant. So get ready for the vast majority of that list to remain dead even after the sequence.
So a couple things here, Igor. First of all, you should rename that to the pole dancer sequence.
Noted.
I think it'll get attention. But yeah, hitting those nerves is super important in everything you do. And so I'm wondering, there's a couple things that you said that I thought were interesting, and I want your take on it. You said this thing about people don't know who you are and your subject line having to be so enticing. So what would you say is more important, a hot subject line or people recognizing the name of the email sender?
Well, I hate to make the choice, right? I hate to be forced to choose between the two, but if I had to choose, I would much rather take the scenario where my market knows my name and knows what I stand for rather than having the world's best subject lines. Because I can clearly see a situation where a great subject line fails because I don't like the receiver of the email doesn't know who the sender is. And at the same time, I see clearly how just knowing who the sender is automatically makes the subject line better because of that pre-existing familiarity with the sender's name.
Yeah, cool. So is there really a chance though? Because after you've been forgotten, is there really a chance that you can resurrect people? Have you successfully done this in the past?
Well, believe it or not, I have. There were a couple of times in my life when I neglected my list. And the first time, I think I told the story of how I built my list through blogging on GetResponse. I built a list of about 1,000 people. I started mailing that list after about 8 months of blogging and not mailing it, right? And I had like 10 people open and 3 people click the link and, 30 people unsubscribe or something like that. So, ridiculous numbers that I don't really remember. But the response was, it didn't exist. So that list I dropped and started building again on Aweber. Now, there was another time when I built a buyer's list, okay, and I neglected it completely, which was when I started my traffic business. I collected automatically through an email parser. I was collecting my buyers, but I wasn't mailing them at all. Because at the time, even though I was familiar with email marketing, I wasn't a smart email marketer. I was a newbie email marketer. So I made the same mistakes that everybody else. And at some point, I realized, wait a minute, I have this buyer list. Why am I not mailing that? And so I started mailing that buyer list every other day because, again, I was timid. I was scared. I wasn't sure what I was doing. So I mailed it once, I mailed twice, I mailed 3 times, and I didn't dare to send them a link. Right, didn't dare to tell them, go buy something. Even though they were buyers, right? Even though they told me, hey, Igor, we buy stuff. We are totally cool with that. So I mailed them like that for about 7 or 10 emails. And I started noticing that the open rates were fluctuating. So one email would get very low open rate. The other one email would get a decent one. Then I would get a great one. Then I would get a low again. So I realized it was actually getting to a point where this list is just like any other list that I've had. So at some point, I worked up the courage to send them an offer for traffic. And I did. And it worked. And ever since, I started to aggressively email. And that was the first time when I used the resurrection sequence. The other time, I wrote a resurrection sequence. Actually, let's call it the polled enter sequence. I love it much better. I wrote a polled enter sequence for a client in the Make Money Online space. He had a list of, I think it was 400 something buyers of a software that's designed to write articles. And the sequence was only 4 emails long and it had an offer in it. So it broke many of the rules that I mentioned today. And that's how I know that you shouldn't pitch. Because all in all, from those 400 buyers, we made, I think, 2 sales. We got some response, but it was really, pathetic. And that's where I first learned that, hey, when you're resurrecting a list, don't pitch them. It's too early. If you start a relationship with a pitch, that's perfectly fine. But if you need to bring it back, from the dead, then you have to wait a little bit and you have to infotain them more so than you pitch.
But even with all that, you're saying it is better to just start from scratch, even if it is a buyer's list?
Yes, sir. I mean, it hurts. I guess it hurts 10 times as much to drop a buyer's list because, a buyer is 10 times more valuable. And you can still try the resurrection sequence. But I assure you, if there's been a long time since you've emailed that list and they've forgotten who you are, most likely you're just wasting your time. But if you're working with a really limited budget, if you are like on a shoestring and you don't know what you're doing, you're at the end of your rope, try the polled answer sequence. But if you're capable of letting that go, which I highly recommend, then by all means, absolutely let it go, forget about it. Kind of like your first girlfriend, just let her go, forget about her, let her move on yourself, and start over having learned your lessons and never miss a mailing day ever again.
All right. So poll dancer sequence is what we're calling it now. Kill the list, even if you're trying to resurrect it. But if you insist, you got to use this sequence where you're not selling, right? I'm just trying to recap for my own good here.
Yes, sir.
You can't sell for a while. You build up anticipation, tease, and at the end, re-engage.
Yep, you got it.
All right. What else do I need to know about resurrecting a dead list?
Well, you got to make sure before you start that sequence, you absolutely want to make sure that you're delivering. Okay, you have to set up your autoresponder right. And if you're not sure, if you've had like an autoresponder account which you don't think is delivering, then you might as well import those subscribers into a different email autoresponder that would allow you to inbox, right? And the best way to know is that you check your recent stats. And if you're not getting any decent open rates, then you absolutely want to do that before you mail. Okay, so whatever the autoresponder you use doesn't matter. Only watch your open rates. Don't look at the, how popular the software is. Like if let's just say Russell Brunson or, Igor uses that particular software, it means it's good. It doesn't really make, that software good. It means that we inbox, but you might not. So, definitely check your delivery settings before you try to resurrect that list. And if you don't know how to do that, then you should definitely check out our brand new service called Igor's Daily Done For You Emails, because as one of the bonuses for that service, we teach you how to set up your autoresponder account, whether it's GetResponse or Aweber, for maximum email delivery. And you can find out more about that at D4, as in the number 4, d4y.igorsolowitz.com.
All right, Igor. So as we're coming to the close of this episode, anything else you want to say about the resurrection sequence, aka the pole dancer sequence?
Well, not so much. We discussed the sequence and that's cool. What I want to say is this. It doesn't matter how many dead lists you got. None of them will help you make more money. So what you want to do is you want to learn the number one thing from this experience, and that is the list goes dead if you don't email it right and if you don't email it every day. So if you got a list right now, focus on it right away and start mailing it every day and start doing the infotainment thing. If you don't know what that is, then absolutely check out my friend Ben Settle at bensettle.com. And he's also got a new show coming out, which Jonathan is producing. Definitely check that out, okay? And do the infotainment thing, because that is what's going to keep them interested, keep them entertained, and keep them liking you and coming back for more, allowing you to not only pitch in every email, but to also make money while having tons of fun.
Good stuff, Igor. So you want to tease out what you have coming next time, or is it just a surprise?
Well, you know what? Let's keep teasing. So next time, I'm going to share a technique with you that's called Taste Like Chicken, which is, a technique which will allow you to sell a completely new product, okay, to your audience, but make it feel as if it's something they already know, which means they're going to be much more receptive to it. So if you're selling a brand new thing and the marketplace is rejecting you right now, you definitely want to tune in to that episode.
All right, looking forward to it. So that is a wrap for another List Building Lifestyle. Thank you, List Builders, for tuning in. And thank you, Igor, as always, for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you for listening to the List Building Lifestyle. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play to never miss an episode. Because who knows, just one conversion tactic we share on the show might double your list and double your business. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. And don't forget to claim your complimentary copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. This is Igor Kheifets, and until next time we talk, have a good one.
This is the podcastfactory.com.